Hey guys, it's Uncle Doug coming to you from the basement of one of the ministry houses in Liberty. Still, we're in transition here, getting everything moved over to the other place. It's getting thinned out here, but I still got a desk here with my computer on it. So I want to do a video. I have never done a video about what's wrong with the Catholic Church. Not because there's nothing wrong with the Catholic Church, but because there's lots of better people, better equipped, better prepared, more motivated, better informed than me on that particular topic. I think I did a video about the Trail of Blood and the history of the Catholics persecuting the true church that was out in the woods being hunted all through the Dark Ages, killed by the millions and so on. But anyway, it's just not been something that I felt a big urging to talk about, because there's so much out there already, and it's like the Mormons, or the Jehovah's Witnesses. There's lots of people that are experts on that stuff, and I'd rather you listen to them. But man, oh man, oh man, this article came to my attention, and I want to read it to you. This is from KDKA TV in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The title of the article is 301 Predator Priests Named in Pennsylvania Grand Jury Sex Abuse Report. They were raping little boys and girls, quote unquote. So let me just read this to you under fair use laws. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Pittsburgh, the long-awaited state grand jury report into sexual abuse in 6 Pennsylvania dioceses, including Pittsburgh and Greensburg, has finally been released. The link to this is put down in the description, so you know. The 884-page document, 2 years in the making, shines a light into the dark corners of these dioceses going back 7 decades, exposing the predators and the efforts of their bishops to protect them. Today, the most comprehensive report on child sexual abuse within the church ever produced in our country was released. Attorney General Josh Shapiro said, Pennsylvanians can finally learn the extent of sexual abuse in these dioceses. For the first time, we can all begin to understand the systematic cover-up by church leaders that followed. The abuse scarred every diocese. The cover-up was sophisticated. The church protected the institution at all costs, end quote. Several clergy abuse victims who had testified before the grand jury attended Shapiro's news conference. At least one of them could be seen breaking down in tears. The report begins with the following statement, quote, "We, the members of this grand jury, need you to hear this. We know some of you have heard some of it before. There have been other reports about child sexual abuse within the Catholic Church, but never on this scale. For many of us, those earlier stories happened someplace else, someplace away. Now we know the truth. It happened everywhere." The report cites 301 priests, clergy, and lay leaders with credible allegations against them. There are 99 in the Diocese of Pittsburgh alone. Of those 99, a group of 4 groomed and violently sexually assaulted young boys, said Shapiro. Quote, "One boy was forced to stand on a bed in a rectory, stripped naked, and pose as Christ on the cross for the priests. They took photos of their victims, adding them to a collection of child pornography which they produced and shared on church grounds," end quote, Shapiro said. Shapiro said the priests would mark their victims by giving them gifts. To make it easier, quote, "To make it easier to target their victims, the priests gave their favorite boys gifts, gold crosses to wear as necklaces. The crosses were markings of which boys had been groomed for abuse," end quote, Shapiro said. Because of an ongoing legal battle, more than a dozen names and identifying information have been redacted, but the report shows a consistent pattern of bishops having prior knowledge of the actions of these predatory priests, reassigning them and not alerting law enforcement. Shapiro said his office is not satisfied with the release of the redacted report. Shapiro said each one of those redactions represents a story of abuse that deserves to be told. He went on to say that he will fight to reveal the names currently redacted in the report. The report states, quote, all victims were brushed aside in every part of the state by church leaders who preferred to protect the abusers and their institution above all. The main thing was not to help children, but to avoid scandal, end quote. Quote, priests were raping little boys and girls, and the men of God who were responsible for them not only did nothing, they hid it all, end quote. Quote, diocesan administrators, including the bishops, had knowledge of this conduct, and yet priests were regularly placed in ministry after the diocese was on notice that a complaint of child sexual abuse had been made. This conduct enabled offenders and endangered the welfare of children, end quote. In addition, the report says administrators and bishops, quote, often dissuaded victims from reporting abuse to police, pressured law enforcement to terminate or avoid investigation, or conducted their own deficient, biased investigations without reporting crimes against children to the proper authorities, end quote. Quote, above all else, they protected their institution at all costs, end quote, Shapiro said. The report includes some priests who stood trial or were convicted of sexual assault. In the Diocese of Pittsburgh, they include Father Robert Wolk of St. Thomas More in Bethel Park, Father Richard Zula of St. Mary's and Saints Mary and Ann in Mariana, Washington County, and Father Richard Dorsch, convicted of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy in North Park. Until now, the Pittsburgh Diocese had been considered a leader in those reforms, since now Cardinal and then Bishop Donald Wuerl defied the Vatican back in 1993 by refusing to reassign pedophile priest Anthony Cipolla. Wuerl was a leader in formulating policies to protect children, but in the report, his record here also comes under fire. Okay, then he defends himself, and that's the end of the thing. Man, oh man, oh man. Okay, this is six dioceses in Pittsburgh and Greensburg, and they found 301 predator priests. Okay, 2 cities, 6 dioceses. I don't know how many dioceses there are in the United States, but if this is the most comprehensive report ever done, and they found 301 predator priests in 6 dioceses, what's that mean worldwide? What's that mean across the United States? What kind of sick, twisted culture creates, feeds, and covers up this kind of stuff? Man, I gotta think, no matter how much I was indoctrinated into the Catholic Church, this would convince me to pull my name out. To just, pull me out of the Rolodex. I want no part of this. I dropped out of the Baptist Church just because I knew they were lying to me about the spiritual gifts. God does talk to people. God does heal people. God is alive and well and doing stuff. And they said he wasn't. And the miracles weren't for today, and God didn't do that. And I said, you know what? You're lying, and I don't think you know you're lying, which is even more dangerous. So just pull me out. These guys are lying, and they know they're lying. Intentionally covering up. Okay, now let me give you my personal example of interaction with the Catholic Church and this exact problem. Okay? From 1994 to 1997, I was director of student life and residence life at St. Mary College in Leavenworth, Kansas, which is now St. Mary University, which is run by the Sisters of Charity, which is a very old, long-standing group that is chartered directly from the Pope and doesn't have to answer to any particular local bishop, evidently. Anyway, I went to college at a Baptist campus where it was a dry campus. There's not supposed to be any alcohol, period. You get in big trouble for having it in your room or sneaking it in or being drunk or anything. At the Catholic college, you could drink if you were 21. And you could have 18-year-olds in the room with you drinking if you were drinking, as long as they weren't drinking. Which, when I knock on the door and there's 10 kids in the room and 2 of them are 21 and there's 10 beers on the table, and then the 2 that are 21 say, oh yeah, those are all mine. Okay, I got to overlook it. I got to give them a pass. I got to catch them in the hallway with a beer or catch them under 21 drunk to violate them. But over the summer, all of the priests in I don't know how many dioceses get together. They're on campus, and they put them in the rooms, and they have their summer conference for a week or so. And they bring in a kiddie pool. They take over the social room in the basement of the dorm. They bring in a kiddie pool for all the ice and hard liquor and beer and whatever. Most of the college kids are gone except some of the international students. And one summer, I get a complaint from some of the international students that the priests are trying to get them to drink with them, and they're not, and they're underage. I mean, I would have to violate them if they did that. And then one night, and the priests are having their meetings, and then they're staying up late at night and partying. And one night, my room is just at the entrance to the residence halls across from the elevator, and I get up 2 o'clock in the morning because a couple, 2 or 3 priests have pushed an upright piano onto the elevator, and they're drinking and smoking cigars and playing beer songs or something on the piano, riding it up and down in the residence hall. Now, right above me, there's a floor of nuns that work at the college, and they're leaving it all alone. I think they go in, lock their doors, and keep their head down. But I've got responsibility for the residence hall, for safety, and you're not supposed to be smoking in the building. You're not supposed to have an open container, and you have exceeded the weight limit on the elevator. This is a little elevator that has like 900-pound, 1,000-pound limit, and you just pushed a piano on there, plus 3 grown men riding up and down, whatever. I mean, they barely fit in there. And you know, I just see this this elevator crashing to the ground, and somehow me ended up being responsible because I didn't go out. I'm supposed to be on rounds telling them not to do this stuff. So I tell them to knock it off very sweetly. You can't do this. You've exceeded the elevator rating. You guys could really get hurt, and this is not okay, and whatever. And they growl at me a little and agree, and push the piano off the elevator. The next day I get called into the office, and my boss, who's vice president and dean of student affairs, and a nun, says, don't you ever say boo to them. Don't you ever tell them not to do anything. Don't you ever scold them. Don't you ever make a word about nothing. You just leave them alone, let them do whatever they want. Yeah, come on, really? Really? Yeah, you leave them alone. Man, oh man. Now, had it come up that one of the female students came to me and said he grabbed my butt, I would have done something about it. But they kept their head down, I kept my head down, and we got through it. And but I still have a responsibility to the students, and for them not to be harassed and whatever, above and beyond any responsibility I have to Catholic priests. But you better believe first thing in the morning, some priest called the president, called the vice president, told me to lay off. And it was, I mean, lickety split first thing in the morning. And if that is how things get done in the Catholic Church, it's systemic. It's systemic. It's all over. And maybe this guy in Pennsylvania has put in some reforms. Maybe they can, some priest can look you in the eye and maybe he believes, oh yeah, that was all in the past, but we're better now. We don't do that anymore. Man, you know, I have met Christians. There was a sister at St. Mary College that I am absolutely sure was right with Jesus and loved the Lord. And I knew that because she was not part of the system. She broke the rules regularly because it was necessary, because it was right, because she was more concerned about the kids' spiritual health and then, you know, whatever. I knew a nun had a drawer full of condoms, and kids would come in and just open the drawer and take one if they needed one. And I was like, how do you do that? She's like, I'd probably get thrown out of here if anybody knew, but if they're going to have sex anyway, they need to be protected. You know, they can't get all bent out of shape about don't use birth control, because the Pope's also like, don't have sex before you're married. But if you're going to ignore one, ignore two. You know, just don't drop out of school pregnant, and or don't go get an abortion. Don't whatever. You know, she was practical about it. And, you know, even at the expense of getting thrown out. So, you know, there are those that I've met that don't believe for a minute that Mary's a co-redemptrix or whatever. And I think they're going to be okay, and I think the Lord loves them, and they're spending their lives cared for the hurting and the lost and the poor. But man, I've met some nuns too. They're going to be in charge in hell. I mean, they'll have giant rulers and be beating the crap out of Satan. I mean, they're as lost can be, and the system is just so wrong. From the very beginning, the system was wrong. From Constantine, the system was wrong. From oh man, I mean, maybe you grew up Catholic. Maybe you had a nun whack you in school. Maybe a priest grabbed you. Maybe whatever. Don't be mad at Jesus. That thing has nothing to do with Jesus. There is no Jesus in 301 pedophile priests. And who knows how many. That's just two towns. Ugh. I'm gonna at the risk of being sacrilegious or promoting bad language, I'm going to put another link in my description to a video from comedian Christopher Titus and his plan to take care of pedophile priests in the Catholic Church. And you might look that up and see if you agree. Anyway, it's there's a special place, man. There's a special place in hell for people that say they're men of God and they use it to hurt people. Anyway, I hope it all gets exposed. I hope it gets exposed everywhere. I hope it wrecks the whole machine. It's trillions and trillions of dollars that the Catholic Church controls and isn't really feeding the poor, isn't really caring for those in need, isn't really, extravagantly spending themselves on the people. I grew up in Mexico. Every little village has a gold-crusted cathedral that took 200 years to build on the back of the peasants. And you walk in and there's a glass coffin with a dead Jesus on the side and a Virgin Mary up front. And the priest probably runs the town and can get anything done he wants and lives high on the hog. I'm sure there's a good one out there somewhere. I'm sure there's folks that care and are trying to do right. But there's something systemically wrong with this thing. It's a cancer that has eaten it hollow. And is showing it for what it is. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I pray for the victims and those that are out there doing this kind of stuff need to repent publicly and loudly and accept whatever consequences are necessary and get right with God, or else it's going to be real bad. Stand before the Lord. Anyway, it's not just the Catholics. I knew a girl in college. Her dad was a pastor and youth pastor, and went to jail for abusing boys in the youth group, and it's probably out by now, but and I've known other people whose pastors who just got passed from the Baptists to the Methodists to the Presbyterians, and nobody told them, oh, by the way, he's raping kids in our youth group. So there's I'm not saying it's just the Catholic Church, but anytime people love the institution more than they care about people, there's a red dragon. There's a delusion. There's an idolatry for the institution over the people, for the dogma, the doctrine, the theology over the people. And Jesus is not in it when you hit that point. Anyway, thanks for listening. I expect a lot more of this stuff to be coming out, as it is all over the world right now. There's a crisis, major crisis in the Catholic Church all over the world as more and more of this comes out. You can't say it's America, it's just the United States. You can't say it's some special flavor we have. They're fighting in Brazil, they're fighting it all over. It's doing real harm to the church all over the world because it's finally coming out, being exposed. And like I said, I think the Catholic Church was wrong from the beginning. I think the real church was out in the woods being hunted by the Catholic Church all along. And maybe we'll talk about that sometime. I'll put a link to the Trail of Blood. Maybe read that. If you want to find out where the real church is, look for the martyrs. That's the answer. And anyway, it's a sad, ugly thing, and you can see how the beast is really taking it over. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you want to support what we're doing, there's information on the website about how to do that. We could really use your help to continue to fund all the different things we do, feeding and clothing and caring for people and taking in people and teaching people how to grow things and how to farm, and all the different building the retreat center is the next thing. where people can come and get free and rest. Anyway, you can go to the website, fellowshipofthemartyrs.com, and there's PayPal information there, a little piggy bank. If you wanted to give, or an address where you can mail a check or whatever, if we've been a blessing to you, help us reach out to more people. The best thing you could do, the very best thing you could do for the ministry is to get the word out, to share the videos, to like, subscribe, hit the little bell so that you're notified when we put up a new video. As looking at my analytics, 2/3 of the people that watch our videos are not subscribers, and would like that to change. Would like to really have a lot more people that are notified regularly of when we put new videos out, instead of just finding them randomly on the side of YouTube. But if you'd like to share them if you don't understand what it's like to be persecuted for your faith, just share some of my videos on Facebook and see what happens, and see how much flack you have to take for that. But anyway, God bless y'all. Thanks for listening. In the name of Jesus.